The family has been under attack since the beginning of time. But recently it seems like that the attacks have been amped up. Pride Month is being celebrated, and if you don't subscribe to their ideology, the so-called tolerant will turn on you. But what is wrong with just promoting the type of family that God instituted from the beginning?
Welcome to the Josh Calloway Podcast.
Welcome to the Josh Calloway Podcast. This is Josh Calloway, State Representative in the 10th District of Kentucky. Got my good friend, Mr. Aaron Wales, here with me this evening. How are you doing, Aaron?
Doing all right. A little bit under the weather, but I don't think I've got any kind of deadly disease or anything, but just a little scratchy, but besides that, I'm all right.
Well, good. It's good to have you here. Also have my good friend, Mr. John Cox. Good to have you with us tonight, John. Appreciate you joining us. I hope the trip was good for you coming up from Louisville. So,
brother, it's great to be here. Thanks a lot for having me.
Oh, yeah.
Look forward to the show.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, John has a podcast of his own as well, and we'll let him talk a little bit about that here in a few minutes and let the people know what you're doing. And but we wanted to bring in and have been bringing in different thought processes to some of the subjects that we've been covering. And it seems like there are some things that are dominating right now in the news. They're dominating everywhere that we look. Yep. And so it's hard to turn our attention even to other subjects. And we will as we go through the shows and do different things. But I wanted to talk back again and really focus about the family today and what the family looks like, what we're seeing in the day and hour in which we live, but also from the beginning of time, what has actually worked and what God instituted. And it seems like that just in the last 10 to 12 years, we have come so far from what God instituted in the beginning. I mean, is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, well, and I mean, obviously, we're right here at the beginning of June, which is, the great celebration of Pride Month or whatever in the United States and around the world, I guess, where we get slapped in the face with rainbow flags all month. And, that's it. Whenever I see all of this going on, then it's a reminder to me that the corporations and all the people who change their social media profiles with rainbow flags in it, that they really... They never celebrate the nuclear family like that ever. Mm-hmm. They never, for the rest of the year, post in their bios or in their pictures just like a normal family and say, "Oh, we support normal families." Yeah, and in fact, the agenda that is being pushed in a lot of their bylaws and their mission statements from the LGBTQIA2 spirit smiley face community. Then they actually they hate the nuclear family.
Oh, yeah.
So this whole month seems like a celebration of people who despise the family that is the building block of any kind of civil society at all.
Yeah, and I kind of wondered about this, John, because we live in Breckenridge County. It's farm country. It's rural. I love being out here. You came by my house, so you see where I live and the view that I have out over the horizon and just love being in the country. It's a great place to raise a family. You, on the other hand, was raised in eastern Kentucky, but now you live in the Louisville area, and I'm sure that you see a vast difference in culture in the urban area versus where you grew up at.
Well, I mean, honestly, this is a topic that is very near and dear to my heart. And so, yes, it's beautiful out here. I was telling him, whenever people talk about how beautiful Kentucky is, I'm always thinking like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm from the hollers, not just eastern Kentucky. I ain't from where the money's at up in Pikeville. I'm from on down in southeastern Kentucky. All right. Like the trains,
high rollers.
The trains don't even go down in there. But so it's all, I mean, obviously people talk about the lack of fatherhood and all that. A lot of times it becomes like a race conversation. Yeah. I'm here to tell everyone it is absolutely as bad of a problem in our mountain communities, in the Appalachian community. My own biological father died of a drug overdose when I was 10. I don't know if I ever slept under the same roof as him. Mm-hmm. And like I look around and see, like you're talking about, this movement that's basically celebrating the lack of a nuclear family, lack of fathers. Yeah. And I can tell you from my day-to-day daddy issues that I have, all I've ever wanted
Yeah.
And I think most people want is a strong father and with a great relationship with their mother.
Yeah. Do you think that the push to have, gay or lesbian or homosexual couples adopt children, do you think that, whenever I was in college and it was like, oh, this is compassion toward people that don't have fathers or mothers or children that need to be adopted. And have you seen maybe in your community people that have adopted children or whatever? Do you think that is them feeling a need, or is it them trying to promote that they are like a normal family? Do you?
I mean, I honestly think it probably started out just from where there's so many children out there that are orphaned or just, don't come from broken homes, that they just needed somewhere to somebody to take care of them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But this is actually kind of what you're getting at, is one of the things that I think is most interesting about Pride Month. And it seems like this year it's even more exaggerated. It's almost became a month to where, like, if you're lesbian or gay, it's not even for you anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
Like, I think on one of my last shows, I talked about how, like, I know gays, I know lesbians that literally just wanted to be able to, like, share their 401k.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Wanted to be able to get, like, be able to leave their death benefit from their work life insurance for the person that they, were, like, saying was their partner or whatever. We've totally gotten away from that. I mean, spiritually, religiously, that's obviously not compatible.
Yeah.
But, like, from a, just like two people trying to be together, have offspring, have a retirement plan, have health insurance, that's not what this month's about anymore.
Right.
No,
like, those were the rights they were fighting for.
It's all activism. It's all activism, and that's what it's turned into. And I've said this many times, but a lot of what we have seen is the promotion. It is promote us. It's not accept us for who and what we are.
Right.
I know what God said. I know what the Bible says, and I have the right to believe that, the responsibility to speak that. But it's gone way beyond accept, but it's about promoting. Put our jersey on, put the pride rainbow on your hockey stick when you're out there warming up.
Yeah.
And if you don't, we're coming after you. You look at what just happened in baseball. There was a gentleman that plays in Major League Baseball, and he came out and he actually brought about a biblical reason why that we should be going after Target and we should be going after these companies and what happened with Budweiser. And he basically just said that God said, have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness. And he brought that out within 24 hours.
Yeah.
He's back on some type of media again, doing a video, apologizing for what he said and talking about how that he's relying on the team he plays for and their staff to help him to do better in the future. Why would you even speak if you're not going to stand on the truth of what you believe? But that is the kind of pressure, and I think a lot of people don't understand the kind of pressure that you get whenever you take a firm stand on the truth.
Yeah. And something that I've thought about for a while, and I don't want to go off on this for a long time, so just cut me off if I get a little long here. But it's promote us or we're in danger. That's their selling point. If you don't promote us, then we're going to die. People are going to kill us, or we're going to kill ourselves. That's kind of been the message. If you don't promote, if you don't support, then we can't survive.
Yeah.
The nuclear family, if it is put together correctly, doesn't need that in order to survive. They don't need constant social promotion in order to survive. And whenever you talk about the transgenderism taking over the LGBTQIA community, that's the logical conclusion that it comes to, because it's built around identity. And identities can be faked. Identities can be, made up. They can be changed. They get, all of these things. This is the core basis of the entire movement, is identity.
Yeah.
So whenever they talk about gender identity, then they say, well, we're creating a new gender, but they're not creating a new gender. They're creating a new identity. And you know that because the identity is not subservient to the gender. Otherwise, there would only be two genders to them.
Exactly.
The gender is subservient to the identity. So when all of this, comes to a head, then we've come to the natural conclusion, which is the transgender identity. which all revolves around how they identify themselves, and they cannot feel validated. Their identity cannot be validated unless everyone accepts it.
Yeah.
If everyone doesn't accept it, then their identity is not real. And so they have to have everybody supporting it. And then you see this natural conclusion of where it's come to, and then it has overtaken the entire movement.
Yeah.
You know, I understand people are saying we need to separate the T out of the LGBTQ and all this stuff. And I understand what people are saying whenever they say that. But the only way that this could have come to where it is if it started out with the LGBT. That's the only place that it could have started at. Because it's so focused on self and on pride and on you have to promote me, you have to support me, and any other structure of family or identity doesn't rely on.
Yeah, that was my point. No, that's exactly right. That was my point. Is that it all of a sudden everything becomes fluid. It becomes interchangeable. Mm-hmm. And we saw this with the feminist movement, that a female can do everything a male can do. We can be like you. We're as strong as you. We're all of these things. And before you know it, if you're not careful, you have somebody that was created by God for a specific purpose that comes underneath or is less than what they were created to be.
Yeah.
So I don't demean my wife. I put my wife on a pedestal.
Right. Yeah.
Because I mean, there's nobody in the world, one, that could probably live with me, and I'm sure a lot of people out there would agree with that from some of the nice emails I've gotten the last little bit. But the fact is that I elevate who and what she is. Right. And she is different than me. God created us that way. But just because things have happened in our society, I think the last number, John, that I read was like over 14,000 homeless kids in the state of Kentucky. And that's not, that's not including all the kids that are looking for a home and those types of things that are in foster care. These are actually homeless kids. But just because all of this is going on doesn't change the fact that of what has always worked.
Right.
So in the very beginning, God made Adam and Eve. Mm-hmm. They came together. They had two sons. We know what happened in the battle between the two and how that Abel was killed. But from the very beginning, it was laid out, male, female, husband, wife. They come together, they have children, and they were given that command by God to replenish the earth. Yeah. And that is exactly what God, I'm not getting away from as our responsibility as believers that we're to get the gospel out, but we are here with that purpose to be the best dad, the best mom. And when you start ripping that apart and you tear that apart, it promotes confusion. Yeah. And it actually makes people less than what God created them to be. Does that make sense?
It totally does. I think one of the biggest issues for this is that, and I was out here this weekend for going to y'all's church, and I kept talking about just how manly it felt in there, and it's like all the great families and all the kids running around happy. I mean, I don't know that I'd ever seen that. In that scale. I mean, it's not like y'all have some 1,000 member church. I mean, I don't know that I've ever been in a building with that many intact families, with that many children that are just happy going on and throwing stuff at each other and giving big pump knots on their brothers' heads, and the moms are not even freaking out. I mean, I come from an area where I couldn't even name the people that had a father at home off the top of my head. I'd have to really sit and think about it. So, I mean, you have a generation now of people that can't even fake it till they make it because they don't know. Yeah. And I'm one of these, I thought my wife will tell you, I literally will cry every day with my kids, or get them to sleep and I'll go home and start talking to her and I'll be crying. And she's like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "I messed up today." I'm like, but I didn't know what to say in this moment. I didn't know what to do in this moment. Yeah. I'm just winging it. And so that's what really all everybody's screaming. Yeah. For a dad. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they don't even know it.
And in your case, not really knowing, you said your biological father that much, But you have a desire to be something to your kids, though, correct? Isn't it?
It's hard to even focus on anything else.
Yeah.
In life.
And that came from that doesn't just come from that came, the overwhelming part of it comes from you not having a dad and you having a concern for your children, right? That they would have something better than what you had. And that's a desire that we all have, is our desire for our children and to protect them is not based on keeping them down. It's based on, like you were saying, elevating them and giving them something better than what we even had growing up.
But to be honest, I don't know. And this is, I think what we were talking about a minute ago was really this kind of like me culture. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm certain that part of my desire to be a great father is because I'm trying to do that for me.
I understand. Yep.
You know what I mean? And so you get to fight against that.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I need to be trying to be a good father because these children deserve it. That's why I'm here.
Yeah.
It's not little John Ross Marcus Cox is never going, his biological father's never going to be in the room, like patting him on the butt and making him chocolate milk in the morning for breakfast. But I think there's part of me that's kind of doing that for me.
Right. Well, and you can't do it just so that they say you're a great father for self-gratification.
Yeah.
You're actually doing it for their benefit. I think everybody, even in churches, you have people in a church culture that will try to steer their kids in a certain direction so that other people think something of them.
Yeah.
I think that's a natural, the pride aspect is a natural human battle that we all have. But this month is about taking away all of the structure that is supposed to focus that in the right direction and benefit the children. And instead, it's taking the pride element of it and elevating it to the most important thing.
Well, this is what is amazing is when you talk to people and what is being pushed and being promoted in across society. What you were just saying about that desire to be a father, there's things I'm confident that you and I would disagree on. There's things I'm confident that Aaron and I would disagree on. But that is the most natural thing that there is. I mean, that is exactly the way God made it in the very beginning. And so what we would have to come to the conclusion of that, I know people don't want to hear, but anything outside of that is unnatural.
Right. Yeah.
It's unnatural. That means it's not the way that God created it to be. And it turns into being, and what you're saying, Aaron, it becomes an attack against the way that God meant for it to be. Yeah. And that is why that we see the disruption that we see in society. That's why we have so many homeless kids, is because we have so many poor fathers. That's why we have so many homeless kids, is because we have so many homes that are torn apart. And I don't understand in society why you get attacked for saying what actually works. That's what I don't understand, because all I'm saying is this works. It has worked from the beginning of time. Anytime it's been diverted from, it's broken down, it's caused problems.
Right.
I'm just saying it works.
I think it's because people have a hard time admitting that especially if they didn't have that, and you can't go backwards in time and ever get it.
Yeah.
You have to admit that I'm broken in some form or fashion. And if I have sort of role at all in, like said, the Frankfurt stuff or just what I try to do with my podcast, I try to be as openly broken as possible to let people know, like, I went through a whole lot of crap as a child. Yeah. I'm here today in spite of that. Not because of it.
Yeah.
Like I 100% believe that God, I went through it all for a reason. And there's times that, like, my wife and I were talking about this last night. I was like, every very bad thing I've been through, I'm only 36 now. I can still look back and I'm like, dang it. I'm not even mad that happened, because like I remember the moment when I was like, I know why I went through that now.
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a beautiful thing, but like, it's just hard to admit that you have some kind of deficiency, or that you're lacking something. And it's kind of almost discipline equals freedom dichotomy type deals, you know, like when you've never had any of this stuff, you don't want to be confined to it.
Right.
So you think like, well, I want to be free. And it's like, there's nothing more free there's nothing makes you feel more liberated than like purpose.
Right. Exactly.
And mission and like self-sacrifice and doing things for your children, even though you don't want to do them.
Yeah.
You know, there's nothing, but it's like, until you do it and you see it through, you're never going to, it's just so hard to trust it.
I think that really brings up a very important point of something at the core of what we believe as Christians. You were talking about feeling broken and being broken and all of these things. You having this desire for your children. I think that a lot of people that are in the LGBTQIA community have those same feelings. You know, they may feel broken. There's something that's happened to them in their past or whatever's brought them to this place in their life. A lot of them have the same desire to have children because that's a natural desire. They have the same desire to raise children, but they refuse to accept the fundamental fact of our humanity, which is that we are born messed up.
Yeah.
We're born broken. And so there's no way for them to ever get any better because they don't have an answer to get fixed.
Yeah.
Right. The thing that our great message of hope is not we are opposing the LGBTQIA transgender, ideology. That's not our great message of hope. That's a part of our message. But the message of hope that we have is that you are born messed up, just like I was. And I haven't always been a Christian. I haven't always lived right. I've done, I have a past that's very bad, but at the same time, then I have the answer for how to be fixed.
Yeah.
And that is through being saved through Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
They call our message that is intended and does fix the problem. They call that a message of hate. It's a message of healing is what it is.
Yeah.
But they call that a message of hate because they see before I got saved, I didn't have a desire to be married.
Yeah.
I didn't have a desire to have kids. I was selfish. I wanted to do what I wanted to do, and I did what I wanted to do. Whenever I was saved, those desires changed because God healed a lot of my emotional part, a lot of my emotional being and all these things. They refuse to accept that that's even possible.
Yeah.
And if you have that message to them that you can be healed, then you're a hate monger.
Yeah.
And it makes no sense. It's such hypocrisy.
Well, you do understand that this is we primarily focus on politics here, and God and politics can't go together, right? That's what I've been told a lot. Keep your God out of my bedroom. Keep your God out of my laws. I've been told that constantly.
It's a good thing God doesn't think that.
But man, isn't it amazing to have something in this generation when things look so bleak, when we're dealing with so many things, whether it be economically, whether it be from crime, all of these things that are going on in our society, and to have a message that you can tell somebody, hey, there's a better life than the one you're living.
Yeah.
There's something.
I hate you for that.
Yeah, there's something that you can have that
they hated Jesus for
is
the same
fulfilling
thing. Yeah.
and something that works. And that's been the point that I've been trying to make, is that it works. The only way that there are children brought into this world, and how this is a debatable subject, but the only way that children are brought into the world is that it takes a male and a female. But you will, constantly, the thing that the Planned Parenthood put out today, I don't know if we'll be able to play it or not, or be able to pull it up. But it's sad. It is sad whenever you are dealing with something that doesn't work, you propose what does work, and you watch this month the censorship that will take place across this nation when people just simply, it already started today. Yeah. So just today, I think Matt Walsh was planning to release the...
they might have worked that out. I don't know.
Well, a woman on Twitter.
But originally, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, what is a woman? On Twitter, and I don't know what's going to... Yeah, exactly what will happen there. But at first, they were told... You can put it on here, but we will suppress it.
Yeah.
We will keep it. And the two things that they cited was that there was 2 places of misgendering. And we were sitting here before we started and talking about some things that are going on in Kentucky, and literally having to sit here and think really hard and go look at news clips to find out whether it's a he or a her that we were referring to. That's what my point. We know what has worked. We know what God blesses. We know what brings about the best for children, the best environment for children to grow up in. And just because we have other situations in our society doesn't mean that we just say, well, let's just give up on what works. Well, and we'll just start doing this.
Well, listen, the good part about this is when it comes to like the family structure, yes, it is biblical, and I'm not going to sit here and speak to religion stuff because you two are so well versed in it. And I'm going to be honest with you, like if I'm anything, I'm God's imperfect vessel. Okay, I don't want to run the church in the ground by speaking for it.
Yeah,
you don't have to be religious. Like families, the traditional family formation is good for even atheist families.
Right.
Hey, my pastor has said this many times, and it's not discounting what Aaron just said, the message of hope, and he would never discount that. Yeah. But he has said that a man and woman that have never met before could meet each other, just take the principles that are laid out in the book of Proverbs and live by them and have a successful, happy life.
Yeah.
Just the simple things like there's in all labor there's profit, so get a job.
Yeah.
Tells you what kind of woman you're supposed to be, how to treat her. Just simple principles that have always worked. And the reason they worked is because they're derived from the Bible. Yeah. But you could take those principles and have a happy life, have children that have the opportunity to turn out right. Everybody makes their own choice with what they are given, just like you, not given the greatest environment, but you had to make a choice at some point with what am I going to do with what I wasn't given. And you made that choice to say, I'm going to get married and I'm going to have a family and I'm going to try to do it the right way. And so everybody gets that choice. But if it's been working for thousands of years, why attack it? Yeah. And why censor us for trying to just promote those basic, simple principles?
And the structure of the family has built hundreds, if not thousands, of societies throughout time. It's built it. And all of those societies have crumbled whenever the structure of the family begins to crumble, right? We talk about this movement, the LGBTQI movement, as a detriment to the family, and it is, but it's several steps down the line. The first detriment to the family was the notion or the idea that you don't have to stay with your wife or your husband and take care of your children. Right? You don't have to work out your problems. You can just run. Or you don't have to be married to have children or any of these things. These are the first things that started attacking the family because it normalizes selfishness. It normalizes pride. And families are not supposed to be about that.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be about sacrifice for each other so that the future is preserved.
Right.
That's if all I'm concerned about is me, then all I care about is until the day I die. And once I'm dead, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You see, even in the Bible, Hezekiah talking about that. As long as the evil doesn't come in my day, then what does it matter?
Yeah.
And then you see how his son turned out.
Exactly.
He was a wicked king, and this great kingdom of Israel was taken away. That tribe of Judah was taken into captivity for a while. His son repented. His son knew the right way. But that mindset is always detrimental to children.
Yeah, and I think that has to be the focus. And when I ran the first time, one of the things that I said when I ran for office first time, one of the things that I said constantly was that I wanted to be your voice for the future of the families of Kentucky, the future, constantly looking forward. We make legislation constantly dealing with the past. We're addressing what's behind us. We're kicking cans down the road. But policy about the future, policy that preserves what we had growing up and the type of environment that we were able to experience. And it seems like that is it. It is so, people are so consumed with self. They're so consumed with right now that whatever happens in the future doesn't matter. And this is the thing. We talked about that people wanting to take the T from the LG and the B, but the thing about it is that if everybody's that way, there is no future.
Right.
It ends.
Yeah.
It comes to an end because that is not the way that God meant for it to be.
And the birth rate's going to drop. I mean, let's talk to China and Russia about this. But I've talked about this in a couple of shows. The CDC itself has published data showing that 7 years, in 2015, 11% of kids in high school were saying they were LGBTQ or whatever. 7 years later, 2022, 25.9%, 26% of them are saying that. Yeah, that's an unsustainable model.
But it's not a social contagion.
No, it's not social contagion.
And we don't want to use the other word.
That's not protecting a minority. That's creating a minority. Is what that is. Yeah.
The other indicative stat in that study that I keep harping back on is inside of that. The 26% there, only 2% of the respondents are actually having same-sex only sexual relations. I've always been under the impression that was what it meant to be homosexual, was that you were having sex with the same sex. So I mean, they're bulldozing way past. I mean, they're overshooting their mark as far as they can on this, because again, they're even leaving. Yeah, I think that's why people are talking about the L and the G and or they want to throw the B in there. To me, the B is where everything starts to break down. But it's because everything past that is just, I mean, there's just no way to even reconcile.
At least on the L and the G part, then we're at a place where, we know what our Bible says about that, and they know what our Bible says about that, and we can at least figure out a way to exist in a society. You know what I'm saying? We can say what the Bible says, and they can disagree, but we can at least exist in a society because our beliefs do not threaten their existence from their messaging is what I'm saying. We're always going to stand on the truth against that.
Yeah.
Not going to back down on any of it. Not going to say, whenever I went to college in 2008, the big debate, and we got in this huge debate in English class, and I wasn't even saved. But the big debate in English class was whether or not, homosexual men were biologically born to be that way. That was the debate. That was a huge debate during college. This is what it's led to literally 15 years later. This is where we are, so we are always going to stand where we stand. But you cannot live in a society with people that say, if you don't support me, we will die and I will kill myself. Or we will kill you so that we don't kill ourselves. Yeah, you can't do that.
Well, here's the other part of the argument that is constantly brought up, and I hear this by people that claim to be somewhat conservative, but lean in that direction or live in that lifestyle, and they say, well, we're fine with these lifestyles, but we are against the transgendering of children because, if once a person becomes an adult, they can do whatever they want to do, but why? Yeah. If it's okay for an adult, then why is it not okay for a child? How do you stop it there? And so we have to get away from this conversation or this argument that, well, once they're an adult, they can do whatever they want to do. No, that's still wrong. Even if they're adult and 18 and can do whatever they want to do, it's still not right. It's still not okay to demolish your body, you know? And so they're trying to make this argument around that it's okay for these people after they hit 18, but it's not okay for children. To draw some kind of line to say, well, we're not going that far. They ushered it in. Yeah. They are the vehicle that brought it about.
It's not our responsibility to divide it when they're the ones who brought it in.
That's right.
It's not our responsibility to figure out a way to separate them from that community and be nuanced about it. They weren't nuanced about the people that they were bringing in. It's not our job to separate it out. It's their job. If that's what they want, if they don't want to be associated with that, then they separate it. It's not our job to do that.
And then I had what happened here in the last week, John. I'm sure that you've seen some feedback.
I almost didn't even come on the show tonight. I'm questioning what's going to happen to my reputation after this, because y'all are bad people. Well, Josh Calloway, he's bad.
Yeah, I know. You told me
he's a disease. That's what they said.
You read something today that said that I was supposed to resign or call him for my resignation. And I think it said on in the article that he's probably not going to. Well, guess what? I'm not going to. I'm not going to resign, and I'm not going to resign myself to a corner somewhere and stop speaking the truth because people are saying whatever they're saying. And that's exactly right. I mean, Congressman Morgan McGarvey came out and said that I am a disease. I'm a dangerous disease, is what he said. But the intolerance of these people that claim to be so tolerant, when you say just the simple things that we're saying, they've worked. We have the proof that they've worked. We have history behind us that shows that they have worked. And people are trying to tear down the family. That's what it's about.
Do you want to play this video just to show kind of what we're supposed to tolerate?
Hi, my name is Lucky. I've had an abortion, and I get gender-affirming care from Planned Parenthood. I wound up in a very, very difficult relationship, and within 3 months, I found out that I was pregnant. I was like, oh no. My abortion was one of the greatest acts of compassion I had ever committed.
Can you believe that?
It was an easy decision. And it was a decision.
Compassion for who?
For the friends I had told I was trans. They were like, get it. You know,
It wasn't compassion toward the baby that got killed.
You know, that's your decision. You want to finally begin your life. And it was
Sacrificing the child.
Can you pause that for a
just-
second?
Yeah, for sure.
one of the best decisions.
Think about
Hi, my name is that's your decision.
Up until that point, everything had been about.
Yes.
So this is one of the things I keep when I think about young John Cox
Right.
having so many questions, not knowing what a good father looks like, how they should treat a woman, you know, any of that stuff. This is someone in a heterosexual relationship with somebody obviously impregnated her, and so like there's literally nothing wrong with them.
Yeah.
They're just confusing everything, and people are letting them letting them do it.
Yes.
There's no one there to say, listen, whatever's going on inside of you right now,
Right.
just slow down and think
Especially
about
Planned Parenthood.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Yeah, but Planned Parenthood is just about health care.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all it is health care. They're not about anything else other than abortion, killing babies, and now promoting transgenderism.
I mean, as someone with children and with friends that I know have tried for years and years to have children, it breaks my heart for those women
Oh, yeah.
that can't have children.
Yeah.
You have someone with a healthy womb here that's fertile, able to have children. Obviously has someone within a relationship.
Yeah. And what about the father? What did he want to have the baby? Like all of a sudden, this lady's whole selfish desires have overtaken 3 people's lives.
It's all about her.
But in order to resolve it, she has to kill the baby, whatever has happened with the father, and have surgeries on her body to make what she has imagined to be reality.
Yeah.
How is this in any way right or moral?
And the thing about it is that when I see something like this, I know what people think. When you talk about these things, like as you were saying earlier, that immediately you're a hate monger, you are anti-people and all these things. This breaks my heart to see somebody that has been through this much pain and thinks that inflicting more pain actually will bring about the peace or the fulfillment that that she's looking for.
Yeah.
So go ahead and go play through it.
Finally begin your life. And it was just one of the best decisions I had ever made, ever in my life.
To kill a
I wish
baby.
that more people understood that abortion is healthcare, plain and simple. It's important to talk about abortion in a healthcare setting because I think that when we don't, we see abortion as this very, very uncommon, isolated thing. And it's not. It needs to be shared and it needs to be out there, just like any other thing that people go through. I tell my abortion
Making sure
story
you can tell.
because people need to
There's been
understand that it's not
changes
just
made.
a women's rights issue. It is a people's rights issue.
Trying to
They
prove
have a
the
little-
point that she's actually thinks she's a man. this is the thing. This is I think that this plays into where we always go in society when we start the wrong direction, right? So start abortion. There's been this argument about, well, if the mother's life is in danger, then it becomes a moral decision for somebody to make. And then it was, well, if the baby's life is in danger, it becomes a moral decision to make.
Yeah.
And then it's about, well, if the baby has some type of deformity or some type of physical problem, it becomes a moral decision to make, right? And then it's, well, if it's a boy and we wanted a girl, then it makes it okay. Or a girl and we wanted a boy, it becomes okay. Now we have abortions because I'm wanting to become a man, which she can't do.
Right.
But
and
that baby is inhibiting the identity that she wants to portray. And so all of a sudden, it is sacrificing the baby on the religion of transgenderism.
Yes.
And I'm telling you that this will be the demise of our nation when we get these thought processes and this ideology in the minds of our children as young kids, as they grow up and they are confused beyond measure. The 26%, John, that you referred to a little bit ago, that's confused about, whether they're LGBTQAI plus, whatever else they'll add to it here shortly, I'm sure. But that confusion this is what it promotes, that you're actually willing to sacrifice a baby on the altar of your selfish desires.
Yeah.
That is unreal. I mean, I don't even know what to say after seeing that video. It definitely helped me grow greater in my disdain for Planned Parenthood, for sure. And because they're not just about health care. They are an avenue to kill babies. And now they're an avenue reaching out saying, well, we'll help you. If you want to be a man, we'll help you kill that baby so you can identify as what you want, because it's kind of hard to identify as a man if you're carrying a baby. Although I saw something come out today that was showing that. I mean, it's unreal.
There's a bunch of, you're talking about the future and what's going to happen in the future. All of this stuff has been going on overseas for a while. And I wanted to read, this is a short article. I don't want to take up a ton of time here, but I wanted to read this article from The Spectator in the UK. This is written by Julie Bendel. This was written on May the 28th, 2023, so just a few days ago. So it's an opinion piece, but she has been dealing with these issues for several years. And she'll talk about that in the article. She said, while I was writing about the latest scandalous revelation involving the children's charity Mermaids and the Tavistock Gender Identity Development Service, GIDS, it occurred to me that readers of these pages will already be familiar with the key planks of this terrible tale. You will doubtless have seen countless articles critiquing gender ideology and the medical treatments on vulnerable children over the years that have become normalized, and will be aware that gender ideology has seeped into pretty much every key institution in the land. The consequences of gender ideology for women, as well as children, have been grave, as it has led to the push for men to legally be able to self-identify as women and invade single-sex spaces such as refuges and rape crisis centers, prison wings, and changing rooms. It has also led to gender clinics handing out toxic hormones to children as though they were Haribos, the gummy bears. Now, the organizations that she's talking about under immense fire because of the type of perversion that was going on in the mermaids thing and in the Tavistock Gender Identity Clinic.
Yeah.
Now it has been officially revealed what many of us have known for some time. The Tavistock has been taking instructions from the charity Mermaids. But bearing in mind the Tavistock has been treating many patients for what many now regard as an imaginary condition, it makes sense that it deferred to the maniacs who created it. Hannah Barnes, the BBC journalist and author of Time to Think, says she had known since 2019 of emails between Susie Green and GIDS director Polly Carmichael because they were part of Mermaid's data breach in 2019. This made it somewhat surprising when the Tavistock claimed to have no such emails when requested by way of a Freedom of Information request. This is also a structural analysis of how this stuff is working here, just as a side note. If only those that have become increasingly convinced that distressed and disturbed children have undergone unnecessary surgeries and irreversible hormone treatment had listened to those who had been warning of what was to come. 20 years ago, having become increasingly concerned about the notion that children could be trapped in the wrong body, I contacted the Tavistock to ask to speak to its then clinical director. I explained to the communications officer that I'd assumed the diagnosis of transsexuality would have been discredited by now, as many feminists and other people with common sense had recognized that it was based on a toxic form of sexism that dictates femininity for girls and masculinity for boys. That's what we're talking about. If they play with a girl's toy, then automatically they're a girl, even though they're a boy. I was never granted an interview with the Tavistock. Nevertheless, my investigation was published in the Telegraph magazine, and I recall several people that have since banged the drum for trans rights and now considered me to be a raging TERF, saying that they thought it terrible that surgery and hormones were being used to correct what is clearly a mental health condition. The following year, I published a piece in the Guardian Weekend magazine in which I reported on a trans-identified man that was demanding access to a female rape crisis center in Canada. This was 20 years ago there. That's happening here now.
Yeah.
At the time of publication, the trans rights movement in the UK was gathering pace, and they were emboldened by a groveling apology by the Reader's editor for publishing it in the first place. The consequences for me have been horrendous and continue to this day. In the meantime, the feminist and lesbian and gay resistance to gender ideology and medical experiments on children has grown in strength and conviction, but this has come at a huge cost to those of us that have spoken out. Women have been hounded out of their jobs, had their reputations trashed, become unemployable, lost friends and colleagues, been silenced, publicly canceled and shamed, made to feel like pariahs and bigots, when all we were doing was trying to expose the biggest medical scandal in the past century. Here in the last paragraph, it says, while this has been going ahead, female prisoners, some of the most vulnerable women, is, oh man, I'm way down here. I won't hold my breath is what she's saying. She's asking for an apology to those children. Those that push this dangerous ideology have been lauded by many liberals as the greatest social justice warriors. As this war comes to an end, it's coming to an end there, and the trans extremists prepare to be defeated, let's not forget the sacrifice of all of us that have fought to expose this monstrous situation. There should be real consequences for those that have allowed so many children to be pushed through this medical conveyor belt.
Yeah.
She says, I won't hold my breath, but I think it would be fair and proper for those that have supported and defended the practices of mermaids and gids and have thrown insults such as bigot at those of us that have attempted to expose the truth to offer their abject apologies. But those children harmed as a result of this precious set of beliefs are owed the biggest apology of all.
Yeah.
They're not going to get it. We're trying to prevent what's happened there from happening here.
Yes.
Doing whatever we can. You're doing what you can as a lawmaker. John, you're doing what you do with your podcast and other things, and maybe that's a good time to talk about him. I'm not sure. I've taken up too much time, but this is the future of what we're talking about. It's already happening.
It's already happened. And that's the thing, is that so many times we already know the end result of what's going to happen. Yeah. And we have to learn by experience instead of exposition. Mm-hmm. When we have truth, we have things laid out that we know work. We have a conscience that you know we've been given innate by God. Right. And we have truth in front of us that we have been given, and it works. And then all of a sudden, we're going to do something different. Yeah. And somehow we're going to make it turn out good and for the good of everybody. And every time it ends up in shambles, just like this. And we not only haven't learned from other people's mistakes, we can't even learn from our own mistakes. And she's exactly right. Yeah. When you bring that out and you bring that to light, you will immediately be attacked. Yeah. I mean, people like Matt Walsh, regardless of what people think about him or whatever, but he literally has to have armed people around his house because he has been attacked and has been hacked and has been doxxed and has had so many things happen to him, just because he spoke out on what he believed to be the truth. Yeah.
And he's not threatening to take his life or do anything like that, you know, and he is literally being hounded every single day. He's not the only one. And you can misgender somebody and they're going to threaten to commit suicide.
You know? I mean, this is this is kind of humorous. You know, what happened last week, and people immediately started responding. I got some things that were despicable, some things that I wouldn't even describe on this podcast. It's things that I couldn't show that would probably be censored if I was to show it. People involving my wife in pictures and just sick stuff, right?
Well, look, before you play this is, I want everybody to know I called Josh within 30 minutes of this stuff going down, and I'm like, boy, don't you be backing down now. Like, God put you here, don't back down. But the reason they're coming at you so hard is because if they let it get out that you're not actually mad at these kids, that you don't hate these kids, that you don't think that they're the devil, that you actually think those things about the adults that have allowed it to take place.
Exactly right.
Then it all breaks down.
Yes.
So it's like the left is masters at collectivism and then masters at turning it on its head. And as soon as you start pushing back, everything's individualistic at that point. And so, but in that article, it talks about an apology. It's like, I've said this in Frankfurt there's several times. I think all of us men, I think you, Aaron, you, Josh, you, like myself, every man in this country has to like reckon with this and apologize for letting all this go on. Because we all sat back. That's what got me involved here. Was my wife me being in the kitchen at midnight, and I'm reading an email, and she comes in, what's going on? And I'm like, well, I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to get my kids, how my kids are going to play basketball at the YMCA with the mask on. And she's like, cut this nonsense out. You know, I mean, my angel, beautiful wife looks at me and is like, I thought I married like a crazy redneck. Like, you're sitting here talking about putting masks on little boys to play basketball. Like, what is going on? Like, I could have married like a sissy boy back in the city if I wanted to. Like, what am I even doing here? You know, and in that moment, I mean, I broke and I cried that night in the kitchen. I tell everybody this because I just wanted to be out there. The people need to know. That's how I'm that embarrassed of who I was. And we've all sat back and let it happen. And so now it's like, it's time to step up. I'm really not worried about me personally, like holding these people to account. That's honestly one of the, once you do surrender to the man upstairs, you'd kind of, a lot of that hate and just animosity and just like those kind of harmful feelings towards others, they melt away because you know, like there's nothing you can do that's going to be worse than
what he's going to do.
You know what I mean? And I know I got my own things I better worry about for my own like pearly gate entrance. You know what I mean? And so like, I think first of all, we all need to, I want to acknowledge that. I am sorry to all these young kids, like I can make mistakes and say, well, I didn't have a daddy, all this stuff. I had a real good stepdaddy that came around later in life that it like tried showing me, but it's like, I didn't get over my daddy issues early enough. And I've sat back and now I'm 36 and like, just now, shame on me. Shame on Josh for not running for office.
I had no idea.
Well, he said that on the podcast.
Yeah, I had no idea what I was getting into, to be honest. I had no clue. I knew I wanted to make a difference. I knew that I wanted to help for the future of the children of the state of Kentucky. I feel like that was important. But the passiveness that I personally had shown throughout my life, just keep your head down, raise your family, got a great church, got a great pastor, we get the truth, we have a great school. I mean, we've got everything we need as a community to make it and to lean on each other, people to show up when your kid's in the hospital, people to cook for you when your wife has surgery. We had it all. Had the whole package of what it takes to be fulfilled in life. And with my head down and just doing my thing, it's exactly what happened. The passiveness of the church, of God's people, the passiveness of patriots and people across this nation that have stood idly by and let this happen. And now they've got a whole army out there. So whenever you stand up and you are that individual that's willing to take some arrows, you better know they're going to fire them at you. But as David Walsh said the other day, I thought it was a great way that he put it, is that when they find out that you're not going to move after a while, the arrows kind of just start fallen by the wayside, and that's what we've tried to do. And so, like I said, there's plenty of things I could play. I won't play on here because of the filthy language that people have spoken to me or about me or about my family, but some of these things are...
Yes, Josh Calloway, you're a racist. How dare you, homophobic? How dare you? You're supposed to represent every single constituent.
I do.
And no, now you're being all racist and claiming
Obviously,
that you cannot dare support any kind of trans or any kind of gay
How's that
agenda.
racist?
It's not about you supporting it. It's about everyone gets treated equally. And there shouldn't be laws separating everybody like that. Makes me sick. The fact that you're going
they separate us out.
pro whatever you guys are, cancel culture, whatever you're talking about, it makes me absolutely sick. And I hope you get a little taste of your own medicine. Let's cancel your culture. Let's do that. Bye.
Yeah.
Hope you like being in office.
I just love all the like rich white women. I know. I mean, I just want to go. I almost said some like misogynistic stuff at her right there, but I'm gonna hold back.
It's just crazy. I mean, that mindset. But the point is that they have their little army out there that immediately attacks you. They went straight to YouTube and got the video taken down. I'm sure not because somebody at YouTube went there and watched every word that I said and was like, oh, this sounds like hate speech. No, it was because they're afraid of the mob.
System, yeah.
They're afraid of the mob.
Yeah.
And that mob comes out, they try to take down truth. Everything that is truthful, they try to eliminate, because if there is no truth, then there are no absolutes. And if there are no absolutes, then that means we're not accountable for anything. Everybody can live however they want. God's going to accept it, and everything's going to work out fine in the end. But that's not the truth.
Well, I mean, and Josh, you can attest to this, and you can opine if you want, and you don't have to if you don't want to. But that's one reason I get frustrated in Frankfurt, is because the need for truth doesn't end when this topic ends.
Right.
You know, we will have Republicans down there in Frankfurt that don't want to admit that you learn how to read by watching other people's mouths, and so they're okay with kids being masked up.
Yeah.
You know, it's just that they don't understand how life is a series of like little, small, instances. Exactly. Like one small truth at a time, and every time you let one of those go, because it's no big deal. That's no reason. Let's not rock the boat. Every single one of those, it all connects at the end, and it's just like you're just breaking the chain along the way, and then before you know it, it just snaps.
And truth in reality is stability, is what it is.
Yeah.
I say in reality, not as a pun, but that's what it revolves around, reality and stability. And every time that you move someone from stability to instability, then things start falling apart.
Yeah.
It always happens. You were talking about earlier about how y'all feel, kind of responsible for how this is happening. And I think I have some of the same feelings. There's a large portion of my life where I was actually on the other side. So I know how they think, because I used to think that way. Even growing up in a good church, then I rejected all that and left. But at the same time, then I was thinking about this passage in Nehemiah while y'all were talking. In Nehemiah 1, then Nehemiah is serving in the king's house. He's doing what he's supposed to do. And one of his brethren comes from Jerusalem and tells him about the state of the city, that the walls are broken down, that they're persecuted and all this stuff. And as soon as that happens, then Nehemiah is burdened to go do something about it. And that is what each of you are describing. Anybody, we could beat up on ourselves for, not doing more before. A lot of it, especially in your all's instances, is not knowing what was going on, possibly. But as soon as something happened to reveal it to you, then you got into action, right? That's the thing that we're missing.
Yes.
We can't always control what evil people do behind the scenes. We can't always control what the lieutenant governor of Kentucky is implementing in the education system when hardly anybody in Kentucky knows her name.
Right.
We can't always control that. But whenever we see it manifests and it's brought to us that this has happened, the walls are broken down, the children are in danger, then men that especially all Christian men, should stand up and stand against that.
Yeah.
And if they don't, that's when you're going to be held accountable with God.
That's right. Just in the last few days, Virginia, the Department of Health promoted what they called queer kid stuff, chat for LGBTQ plus identifying teens. It was an online chat service that was marketed to teenagers who identified as LGBTQ plus. It said that Queer Kid Stuff is an LGBTQ plus and social justice website for kids and families, because it's got to be social justice, because we got to tie it to being the same thing as racism, right? Yeah. If you don't accept. And they had helpful resources, videos, and more. And they posted it on their website.
And a chat feature?
Yeah, with a chat feature.
Who's chatting with them?
Not their parent.
Yeah.
Well, I click on it. When you click on it, it says that the page can't be found. So I'm hoping that what you just said happened, that some people said, we are aware and it's not acceptable, and that they actually took it down, and that it's not something else that took place. But that's the point. They have been targeting. They are targeting our children, and then they want to have a conversation with them and totally exclude the parent. And there again, it's the breakdown of how the home is supposed to work. Children have struggles. They go to mom. They go to dad. You didn't have a dad growing up, but it didn't change the fact that you should have had, that you were supposed to have, and that would have been the person that you would have took your trouble or your problems to. And so you're not out here saying, well, I grew up without a dad, so every kid shouldn't have a dad.
Right.
No. You're fighting so that we can have homes and families the way that it's intended to be. And this is an attack against that. Get on a chat feature with some other adult, and we will affirm you no matter what your parent says about this, and we will encourage you in this and help you in this. There is no end to it.
They're providing it as a resource, is what they're saying. A resource for queer minors.
Well, and unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know. It probably isn't even a person. It's probably just a chat bot that's pulling stuff from every LGBTQ website on the planet.
Which is even worse, because that's the most woke thing that I've ever seen in my life. But go ahead.
If somebody had said 10 years ago, if somebody had said, hey, we're going to launch a website, a government-run website from the Department of Education to talk to fatherless young men about their relationships with women physically, and we're going to have an option for them to chat and find out stuff on that website for them, you would have said, what kind of pedophile made this website? That's what you would say. Who wants to chat with little kids about this kind of stuff?
Well, look, y'all may have to edit what I'm about to say out, okay? But what if I told you
PG-13?
I try to not use cuss words around Papa over here. You know what I mean? Like, now I'm out there. Everybody know I do cuss a little bit. I ain't gonna lie. But what if I told you there was a Republican in the state of Kentucky that filed a bill to create something very similar to this?
Are you serious?
Just in the last few months. Josh had to go to the bathroom. Wink, wink. He's not here, so he doesn't know I'm saying this. But yes, a Republican filed this, and it was centered around mental health. That's what it's all centered around. They talk about mental health. They don't say we're talking to them about LGBTQ issues.
Who did this? You can say it. I mean,
no. This. I'm going to come back to this. It ties into what you're saying. That mental health piece that people constantly go after. And that's why I said the other day that we have to be careful. That is the end result of the confusion.
Right.
But we know that it's wrong. It's just not right. We know that if the Bible calls it sin, we know that it's wrong. And so we're not fighting for, this fairness issue or this. No, it's right and wrong. This is what the website emphasized. It says centering queer identity, experience, and history at the core of all of our work, with particular emphasis on unearthing historic erasure, honoring the Black and brown trans women at the core of the modern and historic LGBTQ plus movement, In addition, the group is dedicating our primary efforts toward liberating all children from white supremacist systems. So it's all that you're confusion, confused. You're being attacked. They're racist. They're against everything that you stand for. And so we're going to affirm you in that thought process. And like you said, government instituting a pathway that kids can be affirmed in that outside of the parental guidance.
And all of that and I hate reading mission statements from like BLM or any of those things, not because they offend me, but because they literally just make word salad in order to try to impress people. And basically what they're saying in that whole word salad right there, if you break it down, you could put it into like one sentence basically. And that is, they believe that the nuclear normal family is white supremacy.
Yeah.
That's what they believe.
Yeah,
they believe that a mother, father, and children is white supremacy. And if minorities have a mother, father, and children. Now, you'd be hard-pressed to find that if you go over to Asian countries or even Africa and all of those places where that's what they believe and that's what they do.
Yeah.
They say that it's white supremacy imposed on the minorities. This is the core at the end of the day, despite all their word salad, their degrees from Ivy League institutions, whatever it is, they're attacking the family.
Yes.
At the end of the day, that's what they're doing.
That's exactly right. And back to what you were saying is that because of this attack and because that people are getting more and more strategic, then people like me in the position that I have has to be more and more discerning and on watch.
Yeah.
Because there are things many times that come to us that are marketed as something that's really good, that's really helpful, that you just take it for face value. And you're like, yeah, wow, this would maybe help our society. This is, and then the opposite end of that is if you say, well, I disagree with that, then all of a sudden you become blacklisted as somebody that's against kids with mental health issues, or and so we have to be very vigilant to make sure that we watch as these bills come through and policy comes through, that we are not ushering in a pathway for these kids to become more confused.
Well, and the white supremacy thing is very problematic because, listen, when it comes to confusion and being able to be misled or taken down taken down the wrong path, the most vulnerable, that's a word that's a phrase the left loves to use, the most vulnerable are the most vulnerable. It's the little John Ross Marcus Coxes in East Kentucky without daddies that get taken down this path. It's the black kids in the west end of Louisville. Yeah. It's like back whenever school was shut down. It wasn't the rich white kids not going to school. It was the black kids from the west end not getting to go to school. And so, it's hard, like,
didn't have internet and all that stuff.
Yeah, didn't have internet. It's Zoom. Like, I tell people a lot of times, like, the west end of Louisville is in Appalachia, or, I mean, you could plant me in the west end, I can fit in. You know what I mean? Somebody from the west end can go to East Kentucky and fit right in. But the hood into the holler into the hood. It just kind of, I was raised by my grandmother for the most part. Lived with my grandmother till she died. Slept in the same bed as her till I went to college because there wasn't enough like beds around, or I was like too scared to sleep in the basement or whatever. You know what I mean? Like same old, like the mommy, the matriarchal, like culture is what where I came from and where most the black families come from. But that's one reason you see this white supremacy term getting thrown around, is because they know at the end of the day, other than Christian white males, the only other culture that disagrees with this nonsense more is the black community. Yeah. When I got started doing my podcast, one of my best friends growing up, his name's John Rogers. He's been in Frankfurt with me a couple of times. We started doing stuff talking about like abortion and all this, and it took us like 6 hours on a podcast. And I was like, listen, all I'm saying is the life of the baby should be try to be preserved. I'm not saying that there's not instances where you end a pregnancy. It's not an abortion. There's actual definitions and other medical procedures that are being performed there. I was like, so I'm just saying, if a baby, like, the baby might die, but you got to try to keep it alive. And he's like, there's not a black person in America that disagrees with that. And I was like, well, why have we talked for 6 hours?
Yeah.
You know, like until the 60s, black families, the marriage rate was higher and the divorce rate was lower in the black family than the white family had ever dreamed of it being. Yeah. So like, they separate us because they know they're still, you know, we're one generation away from black people not being able to drink out of the same water fountain as us. So there still is emotional, and rightfully so, emotional scars there. And so they know if that breaks down, that everything they're about crumbles. And so I try to be
that's why they have to bring it in constantly.
I mean, constantly.
Yeah.
So in this instance where the legislator, whoever proposed this bill, I'm not saying you have to name them, even though I would like to know who it was, then how did that get stopped? You know, did you find it, or did other legislators see it and say, hey, this is a no-go, or what happened
there? So I never decided to say I do anything, because I'll be honest, I never really know what impact I'm always telling Josh, I'm like, I don't even really know what I'm doing. If I'm like, maybe I'm not even helping. I don't know. When it came to that bill, it was, you know, we have a little team that we, you know, that like that I work with, and they honestly prefer not to be on blast. They just like working in background. But I like to think that we help bring it to light, and then you know, but it got out of the House. But again, it's one of those deals where these guys, they don't have time to read everything.
Right. Yeah.
They really don't. I mean, and so like they have to trust certain colleagues. That's why committee membership is supposed to be very important. Right now, it's not, because it doesn't matter how much you like it or how much you dislike it. It's like,
that's
the all powerful Oz, like that is an Oz, you know, like is already deciding what's going to get through and what ain't. But like so sometimes you end up making bad votes, and you legitimately didn't know because there's not enough time in the day, you know. And so then it got over to the Senate, and some people in the Senate, like they heard what we were saying and saw what we were saying, and were like, yeah, this is we ain't voting on this bad boy.
And this is, I think, something that normal people can do.
Yes.
Read everything that gets put on the floor.
Yeah.
We can, you know, post probably in the description a link to maybe when bills come up, you know, where it's posted or whatever. You can read everything and create groups that can say, hey, this isn't good. This, whatever's going on here isn't great. And then you can call legislators, and that might be the first time that they've heard about it. Leadership might be saying, vote for this bill, you know, right quick so we can get it done and get out of the way. But the people can kind of counteract that. That's something that people can do.
Well, that's part of the reason that I started this. And I know when we get into session next year that it's going to be harder to find the time to do what we're doing right now. But it's going to be crucial to make sure that we keep the public informed about what is going on. And it's why we want people to share and subscribe and to get the word out on what we're doing, because the more people that we have engaged in what we're doing, the more opportunity that we have to have a collective voice right when it's needed to make sure that the people's voice are heard. And you're right. That's why committees are there, to be able to review bills. That's why that it's so important that when decisions are made to remove somebody like me or somebody like Nancy Tate or whatever from a committee, that's those eyes and that watchdog of the people to make sure that things like that do not make it through, or that it doesn't get rushed through and something gets missed. And so we do. Their time, their votes that I give anything if I could go back and take over again. You know,
I've even sent Josh texts like, bro, I can't. That vote was bad.
Why did you vote for that?
Really bad, that's a really bad bill.
And I'm saying, wow, what did I miss? I mean, that back and forth.
Because they'll be like, hey, this is what this bill's about, and it's nothing like that.
It's nothing like it.
Right. And even if you read it sometimes,
you're supposed to be able to trust leadership.
Well, even if you read the bill sometimes. Not being an attorney, most of these bills are written from an attorney standpoint. They are written in the gray because that's where attorneys make their money. They do not make money on black and white. They make money on the gray areas. And so that is where a lot of times legislation is
unless you're Ben Crump.
They try to make it in the gray area because make it easy, to be able to go either way with it, and no fact, no black and white, no stability in it. Let's make it wishy-washy, and then they make it into whatever they want it to be. And there's usually an agenda. Somebody has an agenda behind it. Mm-hmm. Somebody's trying to get something. Let's add. If you have less than 5 acres or less of ground, let's just throw this in here that you got to get a fishing. You got to get fishing and hunting license on your own ground. Somebody had an agenda there that they were pushing and trying to make happen. Right. So I think the vigilance aspect is key going into this session. I've never been as excited as I am about the session we're getting ready to go into. And it's not because that I think it's going to be easy. It's because I am excited about what I know and what I have learned and what I see out of my colleagues and their desire to do what is right no matter what. Yeah. And I've said it many times, John, the most liberating thing for me being a politician, and I know I've had a bunch of people tell me they hope I've enjoyed being in there because they're gonna see that I get voted out. But that's the most liberating thing for me being up there, other than knowing that you're doing what is right, is that it doesn't matter if I get reelected. I'm not there to get reelected. I am there to do what is right for such a time as this. Yeah. And if I miss that opportunity, if I stayed there 20 years and missed the opportunity to do what is right, what have I gained?
Exactly. Yeah.
What does it matter?
Yeah. Why compromise if we lose our future?
Exactly.
What's the point? Why do that if our children we're going to wake up in 20 years and you as a dad, me as a dad, you being involved in Frankfurt, you being a legislator. Why compromise if we're going to wake up in 20 years and our kids have been tricked or deceived and lied to and turned into something that they hate? What do we have to lose? We have some reputation, attacks, might have businesses or money to lose. We might have all of that to lose. But if we preserve the future for our children, then it's worth it.
Yes.
Well, look, that's one thing I love about being down there. And again, I have no idea where I'm going in this mess. I mean, my wife would tell you that I ain't even going on faith. It's like I'm already out. I mean, it's already out. It's the account is done. Right. All right. But I tell everyone that there's hope because, I try to not say a lot because I really do see myself being down there as being representative of the most common dude on the planet. I mean, you could be no more Kentucky than me. I mean, I guarantee there's been there's nobody with more people from their family in prison. Right. There's no more people with people in their family that are addicted to drugs than me. There's nobody that's more stereotypical than me, who has worse English, who has a terrible potty mouth, who has no business in the building down there. Mm-hmm. And when I walked down there, I remember my first day there, I would walk around with my head down. I was just a nervous wreck, and I just kept telling myself, if it works out, then it means that there's an appetite for the average person. Yes. You're not supposed to be able to be white trashy like me and have best friends that were black growing up. Mm-hmm. You're not supposed to be from Southeast Kentucky and be able to admit that there are some inherent racial biases in certain systems. I mean, there's a couple of buddies of mine that have done time in prison and we were in the same place at the same time. Yeah. I don't know why, but it was either something like that going on, or it was just Providence. And if it was Providence, then that I'm supposed to be doing something more than what I'm doing, and I should be ashamed of myself. Yeah, you know what I mean. And so we just gotta communicate that the message. And for me, I see I'm trying to protect people. I could see it be very easy for somebody to look at Josh or walk into y'all's church and be like, "Oh, them uppity white boys with their beautiful white families and their Jesus and all that." And I'm like, well, come look at my background, brother. Yeah. All right, I'm saying the same thing.
Well, they didn't see me 7 years ago whenever I was an alcoholic and addicted to drugs, and they didn't see me then. They didn't care about me then. Yeah. All that liberal ideology I'd bought into at college wasn't there for me whenever I was in that shape.
But they're so used to people not being willing to get in the trenches and just seeing what Josh is, what his community, his church community life is like here, seeing people like yourself, like knowing how hard I get in the trenches. I mean, I love it in there. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even think about money or how to make money. I literally don't even, Josh is y'all own all these businesses out here. I don't even think about it. I'm just thinking about trying to get the next big Suburban or whatever I can, get to drive around, how to make the next.
There's not as much money in business as you might think.
You know what I mean? And so, like, they're not used to people being willing to get a game plan. They're used to being able to keep everybody separated, break everything down on racial, lines or what, like identities or whatever. Identity politics. And people now you literally can't shame people like me. There's nothing you could say to me to be like, oh my gosh, I'm scared you're going to like.
Right.
I control my own destiny. I'm already it's way too much Jerry MC because I tried to go over. I want to be over the top and tell you everything terrible about myself, everything trashy, everything wrong, all that. Yeah. But for some reason I got a beautiful wife, 4 beautiful children, and now I'm like, if there's an I for me to say here, like I probably know more people in Frankfurt than maybe anyone else in the state on a personal level.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like I've been involved for like 16 months now. Mm-hmm. So whenever actual good people start to get involved that aren't, that aren't redneck like I am, it's gonna be a force to reckon with.
This is what has happened though, by your involvement and other people's involvement, is that we have taken the conversation to what we want when it comes to policy instead of what we think we can get across the finish line. And you look at what has happened now, and I know people are being, they're looking down on different people right now in Washington, D.C. because of what was just voted for. But I'm going to tell you something. If you don't have people that are over here screaming and hollering about what we want and pushing what we want, they'll stay right here. They'll never move. Yeah. And we've walked out of there many times, and, sad because we didn't get exactly what we wanted. But knowing that if we had not done the work that we done and we had not spoke the truth and we had not stood our ground, we would have never got anything. Yeah. And so I think it's important, and I think that is what these guys, John has brought to the table, is that we've had these discussions before. It's like, nope, don't take that out, don't remove that from the bill. Go in there and say it, and see what happens, see what kind of results, see what people do. Yeah. And by doing that, we move the conversation, we move it in our direction, and we've been able to see some good policy get passed because we have done that. And I say we because it's been a collective effort. We couldn't have done it without many more of our colleagues that John's talking about that he has a personal relationship with, but people that he's been in their office, I've been in their office, they've been in my office, we've been in rooms together and went through these things, and we have fought for the same thing, standing bold, and the boldness has brought the conversation to a place that it's not what we want, but it's much better than what we were going to get. Do you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. And I've actually had to battle with that because it's a blessing. It's a blessing being in the room. I mean, like I'm in awe of like God's power that I'm in a lot of these conversations I'm in. I mean, I really, again, I try to do everything in confidence with Josh. I mean, we're buddies now, so I can put him on blast whenever I need to. But all the other ones, like I kind of try to operate, and I'm like, listen, I won't use your name, but don't use mine either, because I got a good reputation, and I can't deal with yours because you being so wishy-washy. I can't. Don't even tell people we talk. But when you know what you were trying to get done, right? It makes the good. It's hard to see it. Yeah, and so it even makes it hard to let other people relish in the moving.
What's called a victory.
Yeah, in the victory. Because I'm like, people be like, did you write this or did you write that? I'm like, I mean, I did, but they changed it. I don't really know if I want to take like credit.
Well, we saw that with Senate Bill 5 that dealt with the obscene material and in schools, and we went through that, and there was no way I had actually called an attorney, I think the morning that the day that we were going to pass it, or maybe the morning before that, the day before, and just said, look, if I vote for this bill, do I move it at all? Do we move the needle at all? Yeah. And he said, very little, but I think this point is something that will actually help us a little bit when if it came to litigation. And John and I had this conversation. We went round and around about it, and that was one of those bills that we passed it, but we still didn't get genderqueer out of Jefferson County schools. So we didn't take it as far, but so you get caught in between that of sometimes you want to celebrate, but you know what you are fighting for, and you know what I had House Bill 173 that I put out. That's what we wanted. Yeah. We didn't get all of that, but we do know that we wouldn't have got what we got had people not stood their ground and fought for it.
Right. And this is just a side point, but kind of ties in, that the big secret and it's not really a secret, of the liberal ideology is that the only way that it can advance is with your compliance, our compliance, and our silence. That's why they put so much emphasis on censorship. And if we do not comply, I'm not talking about to laws, because they're not into complying with laws at all. They're into doing their own things. But if we do not comply and we do not remain silent, that's one of the biggest weapons that we have against that liberal ideology. That's why you see them putting so much focus and power into corporate structures, into social media structures, because they're trying to force your compliance and your silence. If we speak up and we're allowed to have a platform where ideologies can go head to head without their violence, conservatism always makes the most sense and always wins.
Yeah.
But if we're compliant, if we think it's too tough, if we're silent, we think that there's going to be too much backlash, that's what they need to succeed. In an absence of discussion, stupidity always wins.
Yeah. And I remind myself often, the reason why I'm there to glorify God, but the reason that I'm there is so that truth has a seat at the table.
Yes.
And so I've had some colleagues come to me that have stood firm, John, some of them that probably have made this statement to you, but they came to me and somebody said, I don't even know why I'm here. And another one of them said, a good friend of mine looked at him and said, just imagine what would happen if we weren't here, if you wouldn't have been here. Yeah. Imagine what could have possibly happened and how far it could have went the other way. And so a lot of times we're not just advancing things, but we're blocking. Right. We're trying to keep things from advancing that we know is going to be detrimental for our state and detrimental for our kids. And so we could talk about this all night. It's been a great time, John. I appreciate you coming. Tell us a little bit about your podcast, that what it's called and where people can find you at.
Yes, you can find me on any of like the audio podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, all that good stuff. It's just way too much WAY, the number 2, MUCHJRMC. It's way too much John Ross Marcus Cox. I try to go over the top, so it ain't politically correct, but it's what normal people are saying around their dinner table. Yeah. And I try to be a little educated in there. I do got me some education. I got a little bit of it.
More than Matt Jones?
No, a little more than Matt. Yeah. I mean, I didn't go to Duke or anything like that, but I think
y'all went to the same high school though, right?
We did go to the same high school. So it makes us equal.
I feel bad for you.
Yeah, I know. And so you find me on any of those. You can also find me on Rumble, and on YouTube, and then on Twitter. I'm on Twitter a lot as well. Way too much RMC. So yeah, but I talk about a lot of these issues, try to relate them down to the average person, and kind of bridge cultural gaps between rednecks and black culture and all all kinds of different stuff. So I appreciate anybody that gives me a listen. Yeah, I appreciate y'all bringing me on the show.
Appreciate you coming. You can find us on YouTube. We're also on Rumble as well. And because of the censorship that's happening on YouTube, we're going to try to continue to direct people toward Rumble, just so in case they do take videos down like they already have done. But we appreciate you listening. We appreciate your engagement. Share this. Talk about it to your friends and your family. Take a stand on the truth. If you got things that you would like to send us, joshcalloway79@gmail.com. You can send us questions, topics that you would like for us to discuss. Thank you, and God bless you. Thank you for watching the Josh Calloway Podcast. The purpose of this podcast is to get as much information out as we can about what is going on in our state, in our communities, and across the country. If you will like, share, subscribe to this podcast, you can be notified as soon as a new podcast comes out. Tell your friends, tell your family about it. We would love to have more people participating and more people informed about what is taking place. Thank you, and God bless.